Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. Chaos broke out during a California school board meeting. The pride flag will be banned from the school grounds after the board voted to only allow the U.S. and California flag to be displayed. Governor Newsom plans to visit China, meeting with local officials on strengthening a climate partnership. As the legislative year wraps up, lawmakers scramble to pass any remaining bills. We'll take a look at some controversial ones heading to the governor's desk. Chaos erupted at another school board meeting as board members vote to prevent special interest flags being flown on school grounds, which includes the pride flag. Let's hear more from NTD's David Lam.
You are out of order, sir. This is outrageous.
That was the scene at the Sunol Glen Unified School District Board meeting on Tuesday night, as 2 out of 3 board members voted to allow the district to only fly the U.S. and California flags on their campuses. The board shut down the meeting due to interruptions as people were heated over the LGBTQ pride flag.
This is about civility and discourse. Please, keep it under control. I know people are emotional. A lot of us are, and a lot of us are keeping it in control.
Some attendees say the most inclusive flag is the U.S. flag. The board president and a board member were also concerned that potential lawsuits could financially and legally harm the district.
And because of that, I would be voting in favor of adopting this resolution, which does not exclude the welcoming and nurturing, hopefully inclusive and acceptance of each of these students in our school district. And we are a small school district.
There's nothing to prevent any individual from suing a school district. That's just a reality. You will have that regardless of whether you are perfect or not. That can happen. That's America.
Board President Ryan Jurgensen stated, "My concern is that when a school starts endorsing any particular view that can be divisive, then the school is failing its mission." During the divided public comment, some argue that the pride flag makes LGBTQ students feel safe.
Showing kindness is of utmost importance to us, and that means welcoming all students coming from diverse backgrounds, being inclusive to all, and making sure that all of our students are respected and feel safe.
While some have another point of view.
If you're truly worried that some students feel alienated, bring them together through art or sports or other activities, volunteer. And if you see a warning sign, talk to the parent or try harder to include the student in activities. Do something to really help. Don't just try to appear as if you're helping.
In the end, the resolution passed and only the U.S. and California flags are allowed on Sunol Glen campuses. David Lam, NTD News, California.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is heading to China. This comes after a Chinese delegation visited California last month. Newsom says it's to strengthen a climate partnership. During an interview with the Political, Newsom stressed the importance of acting on the climate issue with international partners. He declared it an issue that's threatening humanity and said maintaining a climate relationship with China would impact the future of the planet. Officials from the Chinese province of Hainan, the smallest in geographic terms and the southernmost in China, joined Newsom for a ceremony in August and shared climate goals. When asked if the upcoming trip would include a meeting with the Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping, Newsom said he was unsure and laughed off the remark. He said he did coordinate with the White House about the trip. Officials from within the Biden administration also recently traveled to China with their agendas related to climate change. Members of Newsom's administration also visited China at the end of August for a 5-day trip. The group met with China's climate envoy. Meanwhile, state lawmakers are busy at the Capitol voting on bills. The Senate passed SB 14, which would add child trafficking to a list of serious felonies. But how serious is child trafficking in the U.S., and what does it take to stop it? NTD spoke with Tim Ballard, founder of Operation Underground Railroad.
Tim Ballard says the southern border plays a huge role in child sex trafficking.
We have unaccompanied minors coming, tens of thousands are showing up, and they're being released into our country without little to no vetting at all, and no fingerprint, no background checks. And so this is very dangerous, what's happening to these kids.
The former DHS special agent says he's working with Representative Chris Smith to propose a bill called the Secure Act.
This is going to hold DHS, FBI, and Health and Human Services accountable to make sure you know where these kids are. You can't just release them to whoever comes to claim them, and they don't want to have to vet who comes to claim unaccompanied minors. It's a disgrace. We would never treat a U.S. child this way. If we found a child on a street corner in New York City or Washington, D.C., you would never treat a child like that. You wouldn't release that child to really whoever just shows up.
Ballard cites some troubling statistics reportedly from the State Department.
The United States, almost every year, is the top consumer of child sex material, child rape videos. We're also in the top 3 over the last 4 or 5 years. This is according to U.S. State Department, by the way. We are in the top 3 for destination countries for child trafficking, human trafficking, and that makes sense because per capita we probably have, based on that data, we probably have more pedophiles per capita than any other country.
According to Ballard, Americans are supposed to be liberators.
Well, I spent 10 years rescuing children for the U.S. government, and now I feel like I'm having to rescue children from the U.S. government. And so it's a different battle now. It's not on the front lines. It's political. It's in the halls of Congress, trying to wake up the people to implementing the laws that protect children by enforcing the border.
Representative Andy Biggs says tech companies are choosing profits over kids. He spoke at a child exploitation hearing on Wednesday. Biggs cited a June Wall Street Journal report titled "Instagram Connects Vast Pedophile Network." The congressman says social media companies should be bending over backwards to remove child exploitation content from their platforms.
But that is not the case. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok all allow the proliferation of abuse images and human trafficking on its platforms. Images are allowed to roam on the internet. Humans are bought and sold.
Multiple bills with provisions that would protect kids from sexual exploitation were discussed at the hearing, including legislation that would incentivize the technology sector to prevent, block, and remove child sexual abuse materials from their platforms. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
More new proposals currently wait for Governor Gavin Newsom to either sign or veto. 4 of them stirring up controversy while going through the legislature. NTD's Jason Blair brings us a summary.
First, we have ACA 7, which would amend Proposition 209. Proposition 209 prohibits the state from discriminating or using preferential treatment based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in public employment, education, or contracting. ACA 7 would allow the state to use its funds to enhance life expectancy, educational outcomes, or poverty alleviation among groups based on race, color, ethnicity, national origin, or marginalized genders, sexes, or sexual orientations.
We must do everything that we can to correct the legal oppression that this state has done to our Native American brothers and sisters, African Americans, and other similarly situated populations.
The amendment received some strong opposition on the Assembly floor.
Our Supreme Court has reaffirmed that it is unconstitutional for the government to consider race when making decisions affecting people. It's unconstitutional.
Assembly Bill 645 would make law enforcement capable of using traffic cameras to issue automated tickets to drivers going 10 miles an hour or more over the speed limit. The capability would be in effect in certain areas of the state for a 5-year pilot program. Assembly Bill 418 would ban 4 chemicals from foods being sold in California. These chemicals are found in some popular sweets like Peeps and Brock's candy corn. These 2 bills and the 1 amendment have passed the state assembly and are now awaiting Governor Gavin Newsom's decision. Meanwhile, Senate Bill 233 would require electric vehicles sold in California to be bidirectional, which means to have the capability of sending power outwards to the electric grid and to households. However, bill author Senator Skinner decided not to move forward with SB 233 this year and withdrew the bill from legislative process. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
While some bills garner controversy, others passed with bipartisan support. One such proposal would require trucks designed to be driverless to still have a driver physically inside for safety measures.
Assembly Bill 316 would require driverless trucks to have a driver inside the vehicle. Authored by Assemblywoman Cecilia Aguiar-Curry and backed by a bipartisan group of legislators, AB 316 would prohibit an autonomous vehicle with a gross vehicle weight of 10,000 pounds or more on public roads for testing purposes, transporting goods, or transporting passengers without a human safety operator physically present. Democrats have largely favored the bill for safety benefits as well as massive support coming from unions. Republicans, meanwhile, have been mostly for AB 316 to keep trucking jobs in rural areas. Assemblywoman Aguiar-Curry said earlier this year, quote, "This joint effort with the Teamsters and Labor Federation will slow the profit-motivated drive to human-less trucking by putting the legislature between venture capital, well-paid jobs, and public safety. We will continue to fight to protect our expert trucking workforce." AB 316 is currently on the governor's desk, waiting for a signature or veto.
We'll take a short break now, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come right back. Police have arrested the suspect responsible for setting fire inside a Target store earlier this month. She says she started the blaze to create a distraction. Mark Zuckerberg's new social media app, Threads, bans certain search words. He says the idea is to prevent sensitive content. Those stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, David Zhang. A woman has been arrested for allegedly setting fire to a Target store in Orange County. NTD's Christina Corona has the update.
40-year-old Cynthia Torres was arrested Tuesday by the Buena Park Police Department after an investigation determined the suspect had intentionally set the fire in an attempt to cause a distraction that would allow her to steal baby formula. The incident occurred on September 5th when firefighters responded to the fire at the Buena Park store. Footage posted on the Citizens app showed flames near children's clothing racks, leading to an evacuation. The fire was mostly extinguished by the sprinkler system, and an employee is seen using a fire extinguisher. Authorities say the damage totaled around $500,000 structurally and approximately $1 million in retail losses due to smoke and water damage. No injuries were reported during the incident, and the case remains under investigation. Christina Corona, NTD News, Buena Park.
The wife of drug lord Al Chapo has been released from prison and will not face charges, at least for now. She pled guilty to conspiring with the Sinaloa drug cartel.
According to Mexico's prosecutor's office, Emma Coronel, the wife of imprisoned drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, is not facing charges in Mexico. The Federal Bureau of Prisons confirmed she has been released on Wednesday from a low-security confinement institution in Los Angeles, but did not give further information, citing privacy, safety, and security reasons. An official from Mexico's state prosecutor's office said Coronel was not facing charges for now. The U.S.-born 34-year-old was sentenced to 3 years in prison in 2021 after pleading guilty to helping Guzman's Sinaloa drug cartel, including conspiracy to launder money and distribute illegal drugs and engage in financial dealings. Coronel has 2 daughters with Guzman, whom she met when she was a young beauty queen and married in 2007 at age 18. Meanwhile, Guzman is serving a life sentence in the U.S. after being extradited in 2017 following 2 escapes from Mexican maximum security prisons.
The biggest monopoly trial of our modern internet era. That's what many call the Google Antitrust trial. What does it mean for Google, and could it really change the way we use the internet? We want to bring in Andrew Selepak. He is a social media professor at the University of Florida.
Tell me first, what's at stake here for Google?
Well, what we're looking at is whether or not the government's going to try to basically force competition onto Google by requiring them to no longer kind of be the dominant internet search provider. And one of the things that we're really looking at is how they're going to try to force a competition that doesn't really exist.
Well, so if that's the case, how could the outcome of this trial actually affect other big tech giants like Amazon or Meta?
Well, the big thing is that, we haven't seen an antitrust trial like this in a long time, going back to when we saw the government go after Microsoft, which in a way is kind of part of this entire conversation. Microsoft, having Bing as the sort of alternative search engine along with Yahoo and DuckDuckGo. But at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at is the way that it could have a potential impact is if the government does sort of force Google to kind of back away from its dominant position, this is going to kind of give more possibility for these other search engines to become used more. But at the end of the day, I just don't see that happening because consumers already have a choice. They've made that choice and they prefer Google.
So let's talk about Microsoft, what you just touched on. Many draw similarities between those cases. Now, how is Microsoft actually part of the conversation here? And what did we learn from the trial that was back then with Microsoft, also in terms of the outcome, possible outcome?
So probably the biggest difference is that what we have with Google and the reason why there's this potential change that may occur is that Google has essentially paid companies to kind of make it the default search engine, whether that is with something like iPhone or using it with Firefox and Mozilla. Whereas for Microsoft, sort of the big issue was that it was kind of requiring everybody to use their search engine back in the day, Microsoft Explorer. And in doing so, you didn't really have the same opportunity to make a decision on your own which search engine you were going to use. You have that option now. You can have any device that you want. You can pick whatever search engine you want. But when Microsoft, as sort of the what it was doing before was basically forcing people to use its search engine.
Now, before we go here, on something that probably is most interesting to most of us, because what about the consumer? If it really should come out in favor for the DOJ, what would it mean for the consumer? What would change for us?
Well, and that's the big thing. With these antitrust laws, it really should be about the consumer, not necessarily the competition. And the consumer has overwhelmingly picked Google. 90% of searches are done with Google. That leaves the other 10% to DuckDuckGo, Bing, and Yahoo. So if anything is done, it's really going to be a big trial for Google. It's going to be a costly trial for Google. If they in any way sort of force a breakup, it's really kind of unclear what would happen because at the end of the day, people are going to return to their default position of wanting to use Google, even if it's not sort of the default search engine on our iPhones, the default search engine on Android, or the default search engine on any of our other devices. And part of that's because, if you think about the largest video platform when it comes to social media, it's YouTube. People like to have their search engine connected to the largest video search engine. They like to have their search engine connected to the map app with Google Maps that they're most likely to use as well. So any way that this may be broken up is just going to hurt the consumer more than anything else.
Right. Well, it's quite a lengthy trial, so quite a long way to go until we actually see some answers. Thank you so much, Andrew Selepak, for your insights today.
Thank you.
A new social media platform prohibits searches about COVID-19. Mark Zuckerberg confirmed that his new Threads doesn't allow searches for what he calls sensitive content. Here's more.
Mark Zuckerberg's new social media platform, Threads, is facing criticism. That's for reportedly blocking search results for terms related to the pandemic. Users are upset that their search on Threads for content related to COVID and vaccines was met with a blank screen. The Washington Post reports that a pop-up instead redirects users to the website of the CDC. Tech CEO Michael Robertson commented, writing, "Zuck treats users like children. He gets to decide what they will see and talk about." Threads' parent company, Meta, confirmed its search policy restrictions in a statement. The search functionality temporarily doesn't provide results for keywords that may show potentially sensitive content. The company says people will be able to search for those keywords in the future, quote, once we are confident in the quality of the results. Not only COVID-related searches are restricted, terms related to sexual content are reportedly being blocked as well. Public health experts say they don't like the policy either. And the director of science communication at Columbia University commented, censorship doesn't work. Misinfo still gets circulated by code names and other platforms. Tech companies should invest in real solutions like moderation or education. Threads saw 100 million new users 5 days after its launch this summer. However, time spent on the app has since fallen sharply.
Now let's check in with NTD's Tyler Castile for a sports roundup.
We got a lot of sports to cover today, David. I'm Tyler Castillo, taking you through California Today's Sports Roundup.
The San Jose Sharks prospects are preparing to compete in the next Rookie Face-Off tournament that takes place this week in Nevada. This tournament will allow the best prospects and rookies of some teams from the Pacific Division to compete against each other before the season starts. One notable player that will be competing is San Jose Sharks' William Eklund, who was the 7th overall pick during the 2021 entry draft, where he shares his thoughts on the other rookies and the direction of the team.
Yeah, it's a really good future right now. I feel like I think they did a great job in this, in this draft too. Some great players here coming in, also really good guys, and that's a good thing too. That's talk to them and they seem like really good guys. So it's that love to put in the work. So that's one thing that I'm really happy about.
John McCarthy, the head coach for the Sharks minor league team, the San Jose Barracuda, explained how Eklund can graduate from playing in the minors to playing full-time with the Sharks, based off of what he will see during this tournament.
Well, what you see is, I don't want to say flashes, but you see why he's a first-round pick in our games, and it's just about consistency. That's the biggest thing with younger players. Every single night, kind of what I talked about with Shakir, having those details in your game, whether it be a stick, having a good stick, tracking, things like that, having that there all the time, right? Every single night, every single game, right? And then adding the offense on top of that. I think, if he can show that in camp, I think he'll like the results.
This camp will judge how far players have trained this offseason to become full-time NHL players and potentially be the next stars of the league.
And that was all the sports for today. I'm Tyler Castillo. Back to you, David.
Thanks, Tyler. That's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gunjin World, or through our email california.today@ntd.com. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.